Greetings, programs and users. It is time once again for another episode of Old Nerds Drinking. I am John Patrick, the Master Control Program. Here with me is...
Rojan. I guess I will be Flynn this week.
So, but we are old nerds and we are drinking. What do you
drinking?
What are
I'm
you
drinking a can of Killian's Irish Red. I almost never drink beer, but I've had this for a little while now, and I don't really drink much anymore, so I'm like, yeah, I'll get this out of the fridge.
Oh, and Killian's used to be one of my go-to beers.
I loved Killian's for the long... Well, when I do drink beers, I tend to drink darker porters, stouts, more robust kinds of things, and I hate IPAs. And before there was IPAs, there was Irish Reds and cream ales and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So
I
don't see Killian's too often. Somebody gave me this, actually, and I'm like, where the fuck did you find a Killian's?
So Killian's or Alaska Amber are usually like my two go-to beers.
I like amber ales a lot. I like Alaskan Amber.
One of our coworkers who is on vacation right now in Seattle sent a picture of her at this like trendy microbrewery, but because it's Seattle and they're all about coffee, she had like this super dark coffee stout.
I do like coffee stouts.
And I'm like, now that's my kind of beer.
Yeah.
And she's like,
if I were to brew another batch of beer, I would probably make a coffee stout out of Death Wish coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Which we can do if you want to.
Yeah. So I need to pour one out, ostensibly for myself. Because, I just unfortunately got the diagnosis from my doctor. I officially got the big D.
Diabetes.
So I am drinking there's this carbonated water I get from Meyer, and it's like lime ginger, but it's 0 calories, so it's when I want something.
You, man, you're one step away from White Claws, and there's no shame in that.
Yeah.
Especially with having diabetes, there's no shame in drinking the hard seltzer waters.
So I am drinking that in a glass with a little bit of extra lime juice, and a shot of authentic Tennessee moonshine, courtesy of my coworker Dan, and one of his many excursions down to the holler.
So I got to ask you, and I already know the answer, and I wouldn't be offended. You've drank my moonshine. How does that moonshine compare to the stuff that I make? Smoother?
Yeah, a little smoother, but much higher proof. It's labeled hand labeled on the mason jar lid, 100 proof, and I'd say that's a little conservative.
Mine's 100 proof. So if that says 100 proof, I'm sure it's more, because mine is at least 100 proof.
Oh yeah. I just had one sip and I'm already feeling the warmth.
Oh, goody. Fantastic.
Yep. And now officially we're going to pour one out for Donald Sutherland, whom we lost this week from so many just wonderful movies. And I'm actually a little pissed off because like all the obituaries like you see on the websites are like Hunger Games actor Donald Sutherland. And it's like, you guys realize that's just like the last thing he did. He has a very illustrious career of like really fucking good movies.
My memory of Donald Sutherland, the memory that stands out the most was the end of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh yeah, that's where
he opens his mouth and does the screech or whatever. That when I was a kid, that creeped me the hell out.
Oh yeah. My favorite Donald Sutherland memory is always his cameo in Animal House as like the one like hippie teacher or professor.
God, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And the one main character just looks at him after he goes on this diatribe and he's like, "Can I buy some pot off of you?" And whenever anybody goes off on like some weird conspiracy or some unhinged rant, like I channel that line and I look at him and go, "Can I buy some pot off of you?" But then there was also what is it, The Dirty Dozen, where he was the tank driver. Mm-hmm. He has some chops.
Yeah, he's definitely old school. He's Absolutely. Yeah, he's worthy of a pour out.
Mm-hmm. So we're gonna clink the glasses, even though I've already drank. But ready?
Yep. Ow.
Wow, that had some reverb to it.
Yeah, sorry. I'm using a different microphone stand. I've got it hooked to something else tonight, and because last time we recorded, the voice was reverberating through the springs on my microphone stand.
Yeah.
Long story short, I moved to a different spot, etc. Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Um.
I'm still getting used to it.
Yeah. So this is nice. It provides like that little bit of ginger bite. I guess it's supposed to be like drinking a non-alcoholic mule. Um.
Mm.
But yeah, I enjoy it, and the just a little bit of moonshine to kick it up a notch.
Telling you, man, White Claw. There's no shame in it. You're not going to get any gripe from me about it. And there
Um.
are other hard seltzers out there that aren't as bad. I don't think you'll have a hard time making that jump into that either, to be honest with you, because you're already drinking seltzer water. So
Well,
all that stuff is, and it's low carb, it's low, low sugar.
the hard,
And
and I mean,
that's why
even
I've never had a
even the
problem
hard
liking them.
stuff I drink is mainly in small quantities. Like when I'm
Mhm.
drinking bourbon, I'm drinking a serving of bourbon, which as long as I'm generous with earlier in the day and not carb stacking too much, I'll probably be fine. It's
Mhm.
just, you know, when the doctor's telling me, "Oh yeah, you want to avoid things with carbs in it, like pasta and rice and bread." And I looked at her and I was like, "You mean all the things I eat to fill the emotional hole in my life?"
Which
Um,
is what got you in the situation that
yeah,
you're in.
yeah, which is what put me in there in the first place because it's eating to fill the sadness. Um, I already had done a pretty good job of cutting out a lot of the sweets because I was always a super candy guy, especially sour
Yeah.
candies. Like, oh my god, I loved sour candies, and giving up that was rough. So, but I had already kind of broke myself of it by the time this happened because diabetes runs in my family. It's not out of the blue. It's not a shock. It was always a question of when, not if. So I'm honestly a little astounded I made it this far in my life before I got this diagnosis. Um,
Telling you, man, Splenda's going to be your friend.
yeah, and then that's the thing. I'm other than like candy, I'm not a super sweet guy. I like sour things more than sweet. My go-to beverage is unsweetened iced tea with a shit ton of lemon in it. So I'm already there. Or I'll do club soda and put some lime and then get some mint from the backyard and make that up for like a non-alcoholic mojito and then just drink that all day. So yeah, it's just the carbs are going to be the hardest let go.
You can do it. There's way. The problem is it comes down to fooling your body. Like as far as food, that's why I was telling you about this mashed
There
cauliflower. I
is
hate
no
cauliflower.
way to fool my
I know that.
body into bread. Bread smothered in butter and garlic, popped in the toaster. Yeah, there is no substitution for bread. There is nothing like bread. Bread is in itself unique and
There is
delicious.
ways to make low carb bread. You're just gonna have to learn to make it yourself. We can get through this. It's just a matter of how much you want to do. There's ways around these things.
Mm.
I've been doing this for like 5 years now, and it's because I also have what some people will refer to as a weight problem. So I'm always, struggling with it and stuff. But then again, I do tend to lead kind of a sedentary lifestyle. So, this is
That was
part
the
of what
thing, man.
happens.
When I made the shift to the gun shop, that was actually like one of the best things that ever happened to me. I mean, at my old job, I was very sedentary. Like, unless we were doing a big setup, most of my day was either just sitting on my ass in the office waiting for shit to happen or
Yeah.
sitting on my ass in a room doing sound for a living. But now I'm
Hmm.
on my feet, I'm moving around. Um, I'm not just constantly drinking pop because it's free and it's there. Um, I mean, ever since I switched to the gun shop, God, I've probably lost 60 pounds. Like, that is not
Wow.
an exaggeration. I was at my heaviest about 380, and when I went to the doctors, I am down to 320.
Huh.
I have lost, like, I had to go to a funeral earlier this year and had to go buy new pants because none of my dress pants could cinch up tight enough to fit me from when I worked at the hotels.
Huh.
So yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself.
Hmm. Well, let me talk about Star Wars for a little bit. So
No,
let's get this
no,
ball rolling.
we can't talk about Star Wars because there's something very important I have to ask you first.
Okay.
Um,
Oh yes. You want to
it
go to that first? Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
can you please tell me, is BIM on the way?
BIM is on the way. BIM is definitely on the way. So here's the deal. Um, it's no secret on here that I also run a Facebook group called Cinema Labad, and it got started because me and a bunch of buddies we would sit around, and the group has evolved over time, and we would sit and watch bad movies. And our mutual buddy Banjo, we just call him Banjo Jones. He's been there, I'd say maybe for 3/4 of it, and I have watched a lot of bad movies. I've watched a lot of
And
good
not
movies.
just
I've watched
bad movies, but strange movies. Like movies
yeah,
that are like, this isn't made to be bad. This is just what the fuck.
Yeah, I've watched many of these things. I've seen Birdemic 1, 2, and 3. I've seen almost all the Russ Meyer movies. I've watched the
Entire Andy Sedaris catalog.
all of it multiple times. If you guys don't know who Andy Sedaris is, we can go into that another time. So anyhow, we were having in the summertime, I try to set up a projector in the backyard that I hook to my computer, and I set up a movie screen. I get a little fire going, and we all set up our chairs, and we'll do it in the backyard, and we call that the drive-in. So I also run the group Cinema Labatt on Facebook, and the reason that got started is me and the people that I watch movies with, we started losing track of the movies we watch. So I said, I'll just create a Facebook group, and I'll post stuff up there that I watch on occasion, junk. And that group has started to grow. Like nobody knew about it, but one person invited another and another. And if anybody's listening to this and they want to go join the Facebook group Cinema Labatt, by all means do it. It's a very chill group. There's no drama, and everybody just posts their favorite 80s movies or memes and stuff like that. But anyhow, so we were at our work, and John was like, hey, I've got a movie I want you to watch called The Apple. And I'm like, all right. And generally, whenever people come over and hang out and watch movies with us, after they've watched a few, you become a member of the council by saying, hey, I've got a really weird, bad movie I want us to watch. And then I will make an effort to go out and find that movie, and we'll all watch it and laugh. Put a couple of beers down us or whatever, and we'll just sit and laugh at these strange. They're not always like A24 movies. I love. They're not bad movies. They're just weird movies. Anyhow, so John says, let's watch The Apple. Now I have an aversion to watching musicals, and when I was at work, I very briefly skipped through it on my phone. I said, oh yeah, this looks weird. This fits the bill, not realizing it was a musical because I think I stopped at certain points in the video where people were talking, and I'm like, okay, this guy is Satan. This is okay. We'll watch this. And then I find out Banjo says, it's a musical, right? And I'm like,
no.
crap.
I told you it was a musical.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. Because I've actually mentioned it on this podcast a couple of times when we'd be at the end of the podcast, and you'd be like, hey, I'd be like, hey, what do you do? What's going on with you? And you'd say, well, we're doing Cinema Bad. And there've been a couple of times I've mentioned, like, one of these times I got to get you to watch The Apple. And
I didn't remember it.
I only know this movie exists from watching the Riff Tracks Twitch channel. And
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and I saw it, and it was like, my God, this movie is something.
Why do you want to watch this movie if you've already seen it? You said, well, I've already watched it, but I only watched it through Riff Tracks. I've never watched it without it. So we fire this movie up in the backyard. This was a movie that was released in 1980. It was supposed to take place in the future of 1995. And one of my
1994.
1994. Yeah, and one of my other things is I really like to, I like to watch old movies and what they think the future is going to be, and then we laugh at like the bad graphics and stuff like that. Anyhow, so this movie, there's no way I can duplicate the rant that I did the other night, but I'll try to give listeners an idea of what this movie was. So let me do this. So basically, the movie opens up. It's inside of an arena rock concert. There's all these people like wearing silver suits.
So
and I think it was you that said that.
Very specifically, it's basically Univision, like the big European song contest that they run every year. So it's basically supposed to be Univision, where they're competing to be the song of the year.
Yeah.
Continue.
So there's this rock band playing this song, and they look like they're off of the old Buck Rogers television show from the 80s. And like you're talking like clear keyboards.
Oh yeah, clear acrylic instruments.
Yeah. and they're only singing like they're only repeating the same word over and over again, and the crowd's like, yeah, and they're like monitoring the popularity of this band by monitoring heartbeats of people in the audience. Okay, that's kind of weird. And then this group comes out, and they're supposed to be Adam and Eve, and they're playing like this folksy kind of song, and the people are kind of getting into it. Well, Satan is the head of this music corporation, and he's like, no, they're not going to be as popular. So they start playing this weird song, the whole audience is like, oh, you suck, blah, 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 blah. And then somehow or another, it turns into the Satan wants to sign these two people to a record contract to BIM Music. I can't remember what BIM stands for. I got to look it up.
Boogaloo International Music.
Music. That's it. Yes. So, like they get into the office, and they're like, and like the guy Adam's like, like hurry up and fill this contract out. We got to get you into the next room for your stylist and stuff in about 5 minutes. And he's like, well, can I look it over? And he's going to look it over, and then all of a sudden he hallucinates that there's an earthquake and all this crazy stuff's happening, and everybody in the room's looking at him like, what's wrong? He goes, there was just an earthquake, and the sky turned gray or whatever the hell it was. And they're like, no, everything's fine. So the girl ends up signing the contract, and he doesn't. So she ends up going off and becoming Satan's Taylor Swift or whatever. And then they're trying to convince that, like, she goes to this club, which turns into hell, which is basically, leather-clad gay biker daddies and drag queens running everywhere. And everybody's doing drugs. They're constantly trying to get her to do drugs, too. She goes to this party, and this guy that looks like he's some 70s rock star. Like, that's another thing about this movie that was weird. It was made in 1980, but it looks like it was made in 1974, because everybody in the future looks like they're from the 70s. Like very, very space disco. Like, if you've ever seen the Star Wars disco, that's kind of what this was. I mean, the whole time I'm sitting there like going, what the fuck? And the problem is this movie, like, it gets weird, and you're like, okay, it's weird. And then it gets weirder. And then it gets weirder. And then it gets weirder. And it just never, the movie never relents. There's this 10-minute, like, song and dance routine where it's another thing. Everybody in the movie, they all wear these triangles on their face and their head, which is supposed to be the mark of the beast. And then there's this 10-minute thing in the movie where, like, this song and dance, everybody's just dancing.
Everybody
around the
has
city.
to do the National Fitness Hour of BIM athletics, and it's like cars pull over and stop on the freeway. Firefighters stop fighting fires. A surgeon stops performing, and they all start doing the dance to the song from the Univision, which is like BIM's on the way. And it's just the whole chorus is, hey, 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 BIM's on the way.
BIM's on the way.
And
for 10 minutes. And that's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's just these people doing these disco dances in the street and stuff like that. And you're like, okay, after about 5 minutes, you're like, all right, yeah, it's still going.
It's still going.
7 minutes later, it's still going. There's still 10 minutes later, you're like, is this ever going to end? This is hell. This is hell right here. The BIM is on the way recreational hour-long dance. I'm like, is this really going to be an hour of this shit? So that happens. And then at some point or other, Adam's like, I love her. I got to go after her. So he goes and pursues Eve and ends up going to hell. And every room he goes into, it's like a biker daddy orgy going on and drag queen sex. And there was one point where you kept going, still dudes. You open another door and you'd be like, still dudes. You open another door, still dudes. And it was one of the most bizarre. And this is really saying a lot for me, because I have watched a lot of weird movies, but this movie was just like, it just never relented.
Oh yeah.
Like, don't sit down. This is a great movie to sit down and just laugh at. It's so weird. And then Adam, like, he gets rejected by Eve as she's in bed with a super demon having sex. So then they like give him drugs in hell. He gets super high, and then like Lilith or somebody, like the Satan's right hand woman, ends up having sex with him, which they really don't show. But the sex scene reverts to a whole bunch of people in bed doing like these in bed disco dances. I'm serious. It's so
and the song that is being sung while they're doing this is "I'm Coming."
I'm coming. Yes. So he leaves hell, and then he's just wandering along, and somehow, I can't remember if somebody told him to go under the bridge or something. So they're like, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, he ran into the hippies, and he found the hippies in the park who were the people who had rejected the mark of Bim, and
Yeah.
they were all left over from the Summer of Love, and then the police show up, and all the
Well, hold on.
hippies.
The guy that's running it is this long-haired, bearded guy, which is obviously supposed to be Moses. And he's like, "Welcome here. We're called hippies. This is all peace and love." And it's all these people sitting around a fire wearing like, hemp clothes and stuff. And he's like, "Yeah, sure, go on in there." Blah blah blah. And then Eve decides, "Okay, I want to be with Adam." And she's like, "I want out of my contract." And Satan's like, "All right, go. You're gonna regret this." And they let her leave. She comes to Earth and she goes searching for Adam. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we saw him down underneath the bridge," which of course we were like with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So she goes and meets up with Space Moses or Future Moses, and he's like, "Oh yes, he's in here somewhere." So
And
those two.
then there's another song and dance number.
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
Child of
there's a lot of this
Light.
stuff I think I've repressed.
Yeah,
Child of Life, Light or Life?
Light,
I don't remember.
Child of Light.
Light.
And
Yeah, that was weird.
we're not even at the climax.
So, and you did warn me about this, but I'll get to the warning beforehand. So then all of a sudden you hear clack, 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 and then like Satan's
Jackbooted stormtroopers.
Yes.
In like
And
full on.
He's Satan because every time they show him, he only has one Satan horn on his head. I thought it was a mistake, but no, the whole movie when he is in his Satan form, which is basically the same, but he really does own. He is the best character in that movie.
Well, and the best part is the actor who played it. First of all, his name is Mr. Boogaloo, but then the actor's real name is like Vlydek Shadon or something like that. And It's like, that sounds more Satan-y than the made-up Satan name you gave him in the movie. Just let him be him.
Yep. Yeah, he was great. So the jackbooted, they're all wearing these clear, transparent, like riot shields, and everybody. Oh yeah, it's another thing. All of Satan's people, all the business people, all had these super high, like Klaus Nami, if you know who he is, shoulder pads, where if they turned right or left too fast, they would cut off somebody's head because they were so pointy. That didn't actually happen, but that could have. Like the fashion, I always like, that's the thing I like about these movies. Like, what do they think the fashion is going to be like in the future? How accurate are they? And it's always like it's like they took David Byrne talking head and just made the shoulder pads pointy. Anyways, so the cops show up, they disperse, and then the hippies are like, "Oh man," he's like, Satan's like, "We're arresting all of you, and you owe me $10 bazillion for breach of contract or whatever." And then the movie gets interesting. This is the end of the movie, and this is what John warned me about. Actually, before I go any further, please describe to the audience you gave me, which is what we should have done at the beginning, what your description of what this movie was.
So the description I've given people of this movie, and I've said it on the podcast before, is imagine you gave 1970s Elton John and George Orwell a dump truck full of drugs and hallucinogens, like cocaine and LSD, and told them to make a movie retelling the temptation of Adam and Eve by the devil. And that's what it is. It's this dystopian future where like jackbooted thugs with this record industry like mark of the beast on them, and these incredibly outrageous, like flamingly 1970s homosexual like drag sequences in this brutalistic architecture future. But yeah, but it's like the temptation of Adam and Eve by the devil. I mean, the name of the movie is The Apple, and the sound, like, once she signs the contract, there is a song and dance number where they bring out a giant forbidden fruit apple, and she takes a bite, and she has fallen. It's
a giant apple too. Like the apple's the size of a freaking dodgeball. Like if this apple hits you, you're gonna donk. You're gonna feel the pain.
Yeah.
Like it was what it was. So anyhow, back to the story. So now Satan has showed up to the hippie camp, and he's rounding all the hippies up. And the hippies like, all right, they're like going peacefully or whatever. And then John warned me, yes, there is a gold Rolls Royce in this movie. And John was like, Moses and God are going to show up, and I'm like, they better be worth it because this movie's already pretty like way over the top. Like I would show this like just to people as a kink to watch them experience pain. So God shows up, a Rolls Royce floats down from the sky with terrible graphics, and God walks out of it, and it was the same guy that was playing Moses. In the original cut of the movie, I since learned that it was supposed to be a scene where Moses shapeshifts into God. God shows up wearing a whole white suit, blah blah. God shows up.
They call him Mr. Tops.
Mr. Tops, but the first thing everybody says as soon as he shows up, everybody looks at him and goes, "Who the hell are you?" So he's like, he's Mr. Tops, and he's like, I'm going to go start over again someplace else, and you're not going to come, which was basically, I'm going to go form Earth and, whatever. And he's telling Satan, I'm going to leave you behind. And Satan's like, you can't leave me behind. He's like, yes, I am. So then the rest of the story doesn't matter. The gold Rolls Royce is floating off into heaven, and everybody's just kind of following in line up into the sky, following the gold
rapture.
Rolls Royce.
It's the rapture.
It's the rapture. It is the rapture. It was that rapture in that world. And like God is still talking to Satan. And then God turns around and starts following the people into heaven. I'm like, so the people are just following the gold Rolls Royce into heaven, and God's following the people. Why isn't he in his gold Rolls Royce? Anyways. So yeah. That is not even really a good, accurate description of how horribly fun and bad this movie is to watch. It's.
I would like. So after we watched the movie, like we watched the movie and we riffed it hard. You went on a 10-minute unhinged rant
that I wish we recorded.
That to this day, the world is lesser that I did not remember to throw on my camera and record it. This is like learning about the 300 lost plays of Euripides. Like, this is, we know this existed, but it is lost to us, and only those who witnessed it will be able to tell the tale of Rojan's unhinged. Like, this movie broke his mind. I
had to sit there for a couple of minutes and collect my thoughts.
I am talking and be
like, what the fuck was that?
This left him laughing and gibbering like he had experienced some Cthulhu-esque cosmic insanity. It broke him. And he went on trying to like rationalize in his mind what he just saw. And it was possibly the funniest thing I have ever heard or seen, and it's gone now, like tears in the rain.
Yeah, like tears in the rain, and that's it. So the lesson learned is that we're gonna have to start taping these things. Part of me, because I don't even do my own podcast anymore. I just don't feel like doing this kind of stuff. I kind of want to start doing little Cinema Labad TikToks, just like little 30-second video, 40-second videos or whatever of the movie with us doing our little riffs on them or whatever. Mm-hmm. Not the just the audio over top the actual video, because there's genuinely some comedy gold moments that are lost forever. And there was a whole bunch of them that night. Because afterwards, we won't go into this movie, but we watched American Ninja, and it was really stupid. And I look over at you guys and Banjo and you and your girlfriend was there, and you guys are like entrenched in this movie, and I'm just like babbling away.
Yeah, like I said, your mind is still broken from the apple.
Yeah, and I look over and I'm like, you guys can't seriously be invested into this movie. And honestly, all three of you turn and look at me and go, what? Well, actually, no. Banjo, in typical stoic Banjo fashion, never takes his eye off the screen and mumbles like some kind of silent. Like when Banjo's watching movies with us, he doesn't say a whole lot, but when he does, it's usually something incredibly poignant and extremely funny. And that's it. He's kind of like like the silent Bob.
I can honestly think that it was just after the abomination that was the apple. Like compared to it, American Ninja was fucking Scorsese.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, American. Apple is something it's in its own world.
So it's. I tried to think of a movie so, like, truly something you had never experienced before, and I don't think I could come up with another movie.
I think eventually you will.
Yeah.
God, my asthma's kicking. I think you eventually will.
I mean, unless we go back to like watch fucking the Care Bears or something, like one of the real horrors of my youth.
I
Um,
do have the Garbage Pail Kids movie downloaded and ready to go.
oh yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, I've got that. I've got 3 terabytes worth of movies
Yeah,
at any
this
given time.
this is something, and it's just this is a movie that
Yeah, it
only
was.
the 1980s and cocaine could have made. Like somewhere, a like 1980s producer went into a pitch meeting, put down a finger thick rail of cocaine on a table, like just and all up at once. I was like, okay, here's what I got. And
Actually, what it was.
spewed out that movie. And then everybody else in the room did their own lines of cocaine. It was like, fuck yeah, that sounds amazing. Let's do it. Millions of dollars were spent to make this movie.
Yeah, minimal. So I looked it up. God, I wish my asthma would stop. So this was actually created by a guy named Kobe Recht, Recht, and he was a successful Israeli rock producer, and he got signed to a major label. So he went and talked to the head producer there, which was a French guy named Eddie Barclay, and he was like, "I've got this movie that I want to do," and they wanted it to be 1984, but like a rock star kind of movie. Somehow or another, it evolved into like this biblical kind of thing. So
Which makes
the
sense
music
of
was
my
written-
my saying that it's Elton John meets George Orwell.
Kind of, yes. So the whole thing was actually done in like 1977. So to actually call it an 80s movie really isn't fair because it was made during the 70s. And it took them a while to get this movie done. And millions of dollars were spent on this movie, which is one of the reasons I love these movies. There's always, when movies are this crazy and this bad and this, like, just as much of a splendor, it's like, how did this movie get made? Who paid for this?
So there's actually
who
there's actually a podcast out there, at least it used to be.
called
like,
How Did It Get Made?
yeah, how did it get made? And I would love to find out if they did an episode on this movie, because
So, go ahead.
I was actually just like, I cannot believe this movie was ever like enough people thought this was a good idea, and in true fashion, like the morning after we watched it, like we're sending text messages back and forth, like, can you confirm is Bim on the way? And
Yeah.
you sent
I almost texted you that today too, saying Bim is on the way.
so you sent me a link. It's like, I found the soundtrack, and then I replied like, like, my sweet summer child, you think by the time I got home from watching this, I hadn't researched the soundtrack, found out it was on vinyl, did a Discog search, priced it out, and am currently watching for, when I got like $60 of cash to burn, that I will own this.
I was not and am not surprised in the absolute least, because you have for soundtracks for movies like you have this.
I do have the Miami Connection soundtrack with
Yeah.
with the Dragon Song karaoke track, so you can sing along.
So, anyways, here's the deal with here's the movie thing here. It was released at the Montreal Film Festival in 1980, and it's the trend is all the people that went to it all received vinyl records of the soundtracks, which is probably the one that you're trying to buy. So it was, of course, bad reviews. It says bad reviews almost everywhere. The movie generally largely negative audience at the festival. Some watchers throwing vinyl records at the screen. According to Stewart, Golan was so distraught from this that after the festival, he considered killing himself by jumping off the hotel balcony. And as Golan said, it is impossible. This is what his actual words were, the guy that made the movie. It's impossible that I'm so wrong about it. I cannot be wrong about this movie. They just don't understand what I was trying to do.
Man,
So the guy,
could you imagine
since
if
it
more
bombed so badly at the film festival, he was going to jump off of his hotel balcony and just kill himself because of it. He could not understand why people did not get this movie and didn't like it.
Could you imagine how much more interesting the film industry would be if they had like a Bushido-esque code where if like your movie flopped bad enough, you were like obligated to commit seppuku?
Yes, exactly. That would be amazing. Major news outlets and audiences were lack of originality, a weak script, uninspired music, which absolutely is
Oh
true.
my God, it's so bad. Like you could
some
tell.
of the, like the one song "I'm Coming," she only sang a few other words, Bim is on the way was pretty much Bim is on the way for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the songs they're singing are trying to advance the plot, but they're like barely lyrical at all.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Variety gave the negative review stating that the characters in the story are flimsy and seem intended on mere pegs in which to hang musical numbers, and that the choreography generates a lot of energy, but its frantic tempo doesn't always compensate for the lack of imagination. So,
oh man,
anyways,
and then like all the futuristic cars look like the car that Homer Simpson designed in the one episode of The
yep,
Simpsons with the bubble cockpits.
they did. They really did. They all had the fins on the back. They all had the bubble tops that people sat in. I mean, they did. I mean, they did look cool for what they were. Again, as I stated at the fire, I really wish I was super wealthy where I could throw a B movie convention. Like, and I'd be like, I wonder if any of these cars exist. Can we get them at the show? That's another thing about this movie. Like, I could totally see this movie becoming a Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of thing.
Yeah, you
Like,
definitely get that they were going for that like Rocky Horror kind of vibe, and
Yeah.
I think the Rocky Horror predates this. I don't know for sure. I can never remember when the
I don't
actual
either.
movie
That'd be a
version
good
of
thing
it
to
came
look
out.
up.
But yeah,
But I could totally see playing this at a movie theater and building a cult following and having people up in front dancing, like dressed in costume, dancing to the numbers up on the screen. And, you know, I could totally.
we have a little when the movie's going on, have a little heartbeat counter right next to the screen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like you could have a guy dressed up as Satan with the one horn on his head. You could have everybody in this movie drank from like these triangle shaped, they look like vases.
They were
look like acrylic clear vases.
because so that was a thing. Boogaloo was trying
Because of the mark of Bim.
yeah, he was trying to have him merchandise that. So they were
Yeah.
BIM glasses, which were these triangle acrylic glasses. That was just basically
Or fish bowls.
Yeah.
That was the other one.
Oh man, it was this movie was something. I almost want to do a second viewing of it because
we definitely are.
we have other friends that we need to inflict this
Yeah.
movie on. At this point, it's like the goddamn Ring. We have seen it, so now we have to have somebody else experience it to
But
get
I
the
don't
evil
think I
away
could
from
do it
us.
more than twice.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be able to. It's even going to be hard for me to watch it a second time. With I don't know. I'll be better prepared to riff on it. I'll put
Right.
it that way.
Now, I do still want to get you guys to watch the pirate movie, which is this same level of absurdness, but with the pirate movie, it's going for that absurdness. It's like a Mel Brooks where they're leaning into the absurdness. So,
See, that's not as like the thing that makes this movie magical.
oh yeah, is that they are
somebody was trying to
they
make
are
a real movie out of this.
yeah
Like,
they are trying to be deadly serious in this movie.
Yeah, and it just fails. It's the same thing with like Birdemic. That guy was really trying to make a real movie, and when there's just some kind of charm about like when somebody's trying to make a movie and they're really trying to put something out there. They're putting their heart and soul into it. They don't have any budget. They're still going for it, and this guy was really trying to make this movie. It was like
Oh man,
what was that movie?
there was a meme that went around after Roger Corman died, and it was Steven Spielberg like, okay, I'm gonna need like $100 million to film like the first 30 minutes of my war epic. Roger Corman, give me $60 in a VFW hall, and I will film the greatest war film ever made.
That sounds like something Sedaris would say. Again, I could do a whole podcast just on movies, another totally different show just on different movies. Yeah, if you have a way to go out and see this movie, even if you have to watch the Rift Tracks version.
I was going to say, and the Rift Tracks version's free on Amazon, I think, so you can watch it there. I think it might even be available to be watched on YouTube.
Possible. Rift Tracks is pretty good for putting their stuff up there like that. If not, if you can just, the problem is the trailer doesn't do it justice. Like the trailer makes it look bad, but it doesn't. It's not the same. Like it is so, and I really recommend that you either be high on something or drunk to fully appreciate this movie.
Oh yeah.
Don't try to watch this sober. Unless you're going to sit around and do the Rift Tracks things with you and your buddies or whatever. This would go into the category of movies that belong playing on the TV sets in the background at a party. You know, just like
no, this belongs in the category of movies that are on different drugs than you are.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this movie is
that
officially
is that.
on different drugs
Yeah,
than we
that
are.
is exactly. That is one of our categories. This movie is on different drugs than we are. We have a category called French German vampire movie or porno because their movies are like that. That's one of the categories. I'm trying to remember all of them now. We have little things like every time boobs pop up on a screen, we have a little bell that we hit, or if we're watching them online, we'll all yell ding. And for girls there and penis shows up on a screen, women are allowed to yell ding for penis because we give equal time to the female
Hmm.
members of the council. Um, we have all these weird little terms for this stuff, because we watch grindhouse movies. There's been times where John's been here where there's you can go on YouTube and look up grindhouse movie trailers, and they're just 2 hours of old grindhouse movie trailers of movies that don't exist anymore. And back then, movie trailers were different. It's not like now. Back then, they would show you just about the entire damn movie. Some of these trailers were like 7 minutes, 10 minutes
Yeah,
long.
I'd argue now that they're going back to that. Like, it's very rare for you to see a movie, and if you've watched the trailers, you know the entire plot of the movie. Like
You
specifically, I
do.
remember when they remade The Omen in 2006. Literally every like jump scare moment of the entire film was in the trailer. And
Yeah.
to the point where I went to the movie and it's like, why the fuck did I pay to see this?
But you
The
also have the situation like what happened with Rogue One, where when they made the trailer, all of the scenes that they used for the trailer, very little of those, and I think they did this in Thor: Love and Thunder too, very little of those scenes were actually in the movie. Like in Rogue One in the trailer, she's running to the data port and a TIE fighter floats up in front of her. That's not in the movie. That all got it edited out. And the reason that happens is usually they when they're putting the trailers for the movies nowadays, when they're putting the movies to the trailers together, the trailers, they'll be like, what footage do you have, because they're putting the trailer together as they're filming the movie. So a lot of times they'll just give them whatever footage they can use, or if it's like in Rogue One's case, they're like, we're not going to use a lot of these scenes, just give them those, because it gives
well,
people a general flavor and idea of what the movie is. When
and
you see the movie,
modern
you're like, wait a minute, I want to see that scene, where's it at?
and modern day, the cycle of trailers is a lot longer. Like before, you would get a trailer usually when the movie was finished and like a few months before it was going to the theater. Now, you're talking like they're releasing teaser trailers a year before the movie's going to hit theaters.
Yeah,
Sometimes
but we're
before
also
it even.
releasing teasers for
Oh yeah,
teasers now.
teaser for the teaser trailer.
That's like, why? Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, let's go from one end of the spectrum to the other and talk about some good media with the Fallout TV show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's been out for a while, but we haven't talked about it because I was traveling, and then last show we just ran out of time before we could.
Yeah.
Amazon did the Fallout TV show, and it is a master class in how you adapt a property to a TV show. Like
It
honestly,
is the best video game crossover I think I've ever seen,
it
to be
and
honest with you.
like almost the best adaptation of any previous existing media. Like it's not just that adapting a video game, because when you get right down to it, that's what they got right. They did not try to adapt any of the Fallout video games. They they went, or Bethesda said, "Hey, this is the stuff we do in the video games. We don't want you to touch on this canon because we've got things going on. Tell your story anywhere else in the universe." And that's what they did. They made a new original story that is set in that universe and checks off like enough fan service that it's like, oh, if you're a Fallout fan, you're seeing things and you get it. But if you've never played Fallout, you can watch it and it's not like, oh, this is just them rehashing the video games. No, it's a completely new story. Um,
That would perfectly fit into that world, even though it isn't a video
exactly.
game. You can still see if you've played the video games. I've only played Fallout 76, to be honest with you, but I understand all of the lore and everything to it. And it's like you're watching this and you're like, all right, I haven't seen this, but this story could very easily take place in the Fallout world, and it wouldn't mess anything up as far as the lore goes. It just adds to the lore of the game.
Yeah, it's the actors are amazing. The
Yes.
story is amazing. The world building they did is amazing.
Well, Christopher Nolan's brother, I think his name was Jonathan Nolan, he's the one that directed it and put it
Right.
all together.
Um, It's got and it's like got Walter Goggins in it as like one of the
Hmm.
main characters, and he's one of those guys that just instantly makes anything he's in better. And he's usually typecast as like the unhinged villain guy, but in this he almost kind of gets to be the hero, and it's really great to see. And they're telling the story in the pre-war times with him as this actor, but then he survives to the Fallout future as a ghoul, and he's this just mysterious character that's called the Ghoul. Um,
Don't ruin it for everybody. Don't give away too much.
well, I mean, you know his character,
Yeah.
but it takes place after all of the Bethesda games. So specifically, I think it's like 40 years after Fallout 3. So that would be like 20 years after Fallout 4. But yeah, it's like after the events of all those, and it touches on stuff from like the original Fallout games, which are kind of glossed over in the Bethesda Fallout games because they all take place on the East Coast, and the original Fallout games all took place on the West Coast. And like just everything about this they got right. I have zero complaints about this show other than I wanted more of it. And it was so good and so well received that it literally elevated the Fallout franchise. Within a week of the show airing its last episode, Fallout 76. What the fuck was that?
Was that on your end or mine?
I have no idea.
That was. I heard it. I'm looking around the room, going, "What is that?" I don't know if that was on your end or mine because we both heard it through our microphones.
Okay, well, anyways,
I don't know what that was.
the possessed child doll that's somewhere in the ether.
It is on the way.
Yeah. But within a week of the last episode airing, Fallout 76 saw its highest volumes of players in a single day in the 10 years the video game has been out. Same thing with
Fallout. Out for 10 years now. Wow.
Well, or it might be Fallout 4 has been out for 10 years, but Fallout 6, it saw its heaviest, it went from being just a game to it was on the Steam top 10 downloads, even though it had been out for years. Same with Fallout 4. Like, Bethesda was like just blown away by how much this brought people back to and into the Fallout franchise for the first time, to the point where even Microsoft, in an interview, was coming to Todd Howard and say, hey, what's in the pipeline for Fallout? Because we've got all this popularity and we've got to capitalize on it. They announced it had been a greenlit for a season 2, I think, before the first episode aired, because the response had been so positive just to the trailers. And yeah, Bethesda's notorious for having these incredibly long lead times for games, to the point where they just kind of finished work on Fallout 4 and they've been working on Starfield. Then it's going to be the new Elder Scrolls game. So we might not see a mainline Fallout game for like another 5 years. But because Microsoft owns Fallout, or Microsoft owns Bethesda, they're like, hey, we kind of need a Fallout game and we kind of need it sooner.
Yeah, which means it's probably going to suck.
Well, we'll see. Because
they kind of got burned with the Halo television show, which I thought it was terrible.
Oh my God!
Some people like it, and if you like it, that's fine. That's on you. I didn't like it. But
the meme of that Simpsons scene where the dad smacks the kid and he's like, "Why can't you be more like them?" And it's the dad is smacking Halo and going, "Why can't you be more like Fallout?"
Yeah, they really dropped the ball on that one.
Yeah.
What I think you're going to see happen now, because again, I'm the movie nerd, you're going to see other companies try to capitalize on this. It's going to be like, okay, well, what video games can like? It's going to be like what happened with superhero movies and young adult fiction, like Harry Potter and the Hunger Games and stuff. You're going to see these companies that either have games or movie studios are going to be going after games, trying to buy up movie rights, either to lock them up to make sure that somebody else can't produce that movie and lock or movie rights to that particular thing, or they're just going to start cranking these video game movie adaptions out now because of the success of the Fallout show.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's my prediction. We'll see.
Yeah,
It'll
think
take a little bit, but
what the fans have really been clamoring for, and there's been a couple of leaks that have supposedly been timelines of games from Bethesda of stuff that they're working on, and two of the like boogeymen of these upcoming like release schedules has always been either a Fallout 3 remaster or a Fallout New Vegas remaster. And those are both things the fans have wanted for years. I think if anything, before we see a Fallout 5, we might see a Fallout 3 or a Fallout New Vegas remastered. One of the things
that would be the better course, because then all I have to do is make things look prettier,
right?
And
or even
they could get that out a lot faster than a whole new game,
right? Or even they just recently, after the TV show came out, had the Xbox, the big video game conference or whatever they call it, and Todd Howard in an interview said it hasn't been ruled out of another studio working on a Fallout game. So something similar to Fallout New Vegas, where it was developed by Obsidian, we might see another Fallout game developed by another studio, which we would really like to see Obsidian do New Vegas too, but there's a whole lot of other places that the Fallout universe could go. Me from the Edit Suite. At this point in the recording, Rojan ran into some technical problems. And if you listened earlier in the podcast, you heard a maniacal laughter that we attributed to a possessed doll somewhere. And when this happened, we attributed this to the machinations of said possessed doll. We now return you to the rest of the recording.
I can't fix it. I don't know what's wrong with it. If it's not bothering you on your end, then just keep going.
No, I'm not really.
Oh, it's fixed now. Oh, okay, whatever. It just fixed itself. Go ahead. Oh my God. God.
The insane haunted doll strikes again.
God, Bim is on the way.
Have you embraced our Lord and Savior, Mr. Tops?
God.
So yeah, Fallout is great. If you have not watched it, for the love of God, watch it. It is really like. You don't have to be a fan of the games. You don't have to be a fan of the franchise. If you just like good television, and it's the right mix of Fallout's always had this kind of like really hyper violence, but also kind of like slapstick comedy built into it. And they even get that tone right in the game. It's that like weird hyper 19 Americans 50s patriotism, and like the Leave It to Beaver vibe of the 50s and 60s, but just overset against horrific violence and people getting blown to pieces and just graphic blood and dismemberment, and just kind of a tone of psychological horror underneath it.
And the woman who plays the lead she's beautiful.
Oh, and she's wonderful. She you watch her as her descent from being like just this super okie dokie vault dweller of just with the can-do attitude of we're going to overcome any challenges. And then you watch her slowly descend to just being a fuck you, fuck everyone around you. I'm here to do just one thing, and I will literally kill every single person in my way. She is the arc of every Fallout character.
Yes.
You start out on this, hey, I got to do this one thing, and then it's side quest, and then it's side quest, and then it's side quest, and then you're like, fuck, how do I even get back to the main quest at this point?
Like even the robots they got right. The crazy nutty robots.
Oh yeah.
That was awesome. The rules were done right.
Oh yeah, the guy who voiced like the Cogsworth robot is the guy from What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah. Great choice too.
Yeah, it was
Excellent choice.
just perfect. Um,
Yeah, so watch it. Absolutely. It gets 30 out of 25 old nerds drinking votes.
it gets the OND seal of approval.
Owen Deal seal of approval. Yes. Um so do you want to let me jump into the Star Wars thing
Yes,
or
I think we should talk a little bit about it.
All right. So, you have not watched The Acolyte yet, have you? I mean, or have you watched any of it at all?
So I watched the first 2 episodes. I have not had a
Okay.
chance. I think they're up to like episode 5, so I need to catch
Okay.
up.
In all fairness, it's well known what my attitude about Star Wars is, but I'm the kind of person. It's like, well, if I don't like it, okay, I don't like it. It's there, because there has been some really shining, in my opinion, there has been some really shining moments in the Disney thing, and there's also some other moment. It's a weird thing. It's like a seesaw because Disney will do this really great thing in the Star Wars universe. Like Mandalorian has had some great moments. On the whole, I enjoy the show. Then they do Boba Fett, and then they'll do Ahsoka. And Ahsoka was like, yeah, this is great. This hits everything that I want to see. It's tying up loops, and it's done really well. Its choreography's good in it. And then you'll have something else. The Acolyte is kind of in the middle. It's not, in my opinion, it's not fantastic. It's not bad. On the whole, I'm just happy to be seeing Star Wars again because you, like me, we had this long period in our lives where we didn't have anything but the books and the comics and stuff. So it's like if you'd have told me years and years ago, pretty soon there's going to be all kinds of Star Wars and blah, 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 I'd have been like, no, not going to happen. Anyways, so the Acolyte has been getting just monstrously bombed, horrifically bad. And I don't think that it's not great. And see, whenever I go on Facebook or whatever, it seems like anytime anybody posts anything about Star Wars, they're always the 9,000 laugh emojis. And those aren't they're the evil cause problem fanboys. And there's no love like fanboy Star Wars love. There's like that is the most toxic community other than the Marvel toxic community that I've ever seen. Yes, I know the common denominator is Disney. Moving on. So anyhow, it's gotten to a point where there was a movie called The Acolyte. It was just called Acolyte, and then there was something else called Acolyte as well. And anything remotely named Acolyte just started getting negative reviews or just people complaining about it. And there were people complaining about this movie Acolyte. They were like, this sucks. Disney's ruined Star Wars, blah, blah, blah. And this movie there's nothing to do with that. It's totally a different thing. And it's getting weird now. Like I've never seen ever something get this horribly smashed and reviewed. And I don't know if it's become a trend and it's like it's just something fun to do. Hey, let's just go rip on this Star Wars show or anything to do with Star Wars.
So funny enough,
I think it's AI bots doing a lot of it.
Oh yeah, this is all spam bots.
Yes,
but
I think a vast majority of
it's not the only thing that this is happening to, because right now the same thing is happening to the TV show The Boys, with season 4 dropping, and it's getting review bombed. Season 4
is like, yeah, I know there's political ramifications.
Well, it's not so much that there's political ramifications; it's that there is a certain political leaning that idolized the character Homelander, because it's like, oh well, he's the American ideal, and he's like the super powerful, and he makes everybody do what he's in charge.
He's a god.
Yeah, he's a god.
What happens if Superman went evil?
Yeah, he's a fucking psychopath, and in the show, he's pushing the world to a form of superhero fascism. And this certain political group idolizes that because they idolize fascism. And the creator of The Boys and the people in charge of the show took to the internet and basically said, if you are idolizing Homelander, you missed the point. We are showing that you are fascists, and fascists need to be stopped at all costs. And if you don't like this, there are plenty of other things. Please do not watch our show. And so the people of that political leaning have taken to review bombing it heavily. And that's the same thing that's going on with uh, the acolyte is it is getting heavily review bombed. And it never
Well, it's
makes
to a point where everybody is looking for any kind of wokeism in anything, even when there's nothing there.
no, it's just that this is the new tactic. This is the if there is something we don't like, how we are going to strike out against it is we are going to review bomb it. We are going to employ bot programs that spam bad reviews and just auto generate them. And I don't understand how this works. It's
Oh, I do.
well, no, 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 no,
This,
no, 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 no. What I'm saying is, like, it all goes back to the old saying: there's no such thing as bad publicity. The more you review bomb these shows, the more they get out in the public eye, the more people are brought to attention of it, and the more people are like, "Oh, well, I got to watch this and see it." And
yeah, but the thing at that point is, it's all bullshit for one. But at that point, it doesn't matter because the people who aren't going to like, the people who don't like it, the people who are on the opposite side of that spectrum, whatever that is, are going to like it because those people don't like it. And at that point, it doesn't matter anymore because people are just doing it for their own agendas or whatever. So the idea is this a good show or is this not a good show? It all gets lost at that point.
I
It all
don't,
just
and
gets
plus
sucked
we're
into
at a
mesmerism.
society. I don't think as many people are swayed by reviews as people who are doing review bombs think they are. I've
Yeah,
never
because when the Acolyte came out, the critics, everybody was like, "This is great. This is the best thing in a
and
while,"
I'll
etc.
freely admit I enjoyed the first two episodes. I'm not. I don't like Jedi centric shows just because Jedi, especially in this time period, tend to be very one dimensional. But
Well, that's the
like
thing about
as
this show is it paints them not to necessarily be the good guys that everybody thinks they are. Like they're showing if you watch it, you can see where the cracks and stuff are beginning to form in the Jedi Order and the Jedi dogma and things like that. And that is one of the things that I do like about the show. That is one of the things that I do like about the new storylines and stuff that are going and that are happening is because it shows that the Jedi weren't the great thing that everybody quite thinks they were. It's all religious dogma and stuff like that, and they've made their mistakes, which is why Ahsoka left and all those things. But anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry.
what I was gonna say is, um, as it like they've been leaning more heavily into like the Star Wars as an Akira Kurosawa film, and there's a lot of that in this, and that I like. Um,
Yeah, this is basically Kill Bill in space. It's also kind of mixed in with like kung fu. There's a lot of kung fu aspects of it. Like, well, your master was an idiot, kind of. They don't say that, but there's a lot of that kind of stuff implied. Like, this was my student, I trained her. Let me go do this, and this person's master and this person's student. It's got that kung fu movie kind of a feel to it, and there is martial arts in it. So, um, I like that. I like what they're doing with that. Like all of the different Star Wars properties have in one way or another drawn inspiration from something cinematic of some way. Like the Mandalorian is basically spaghetti western for the most
well, I
part.
mean, it's the old joke of like somebody said, "Well, Star Wars is just a cheap ripoff of Dune," and it's like, no, Star Wars is a very expensive ripoff of Dune. And
Dune is
it's
part
like,
of it,
well,
yeah,
George
but it's
Lucas
also
stole from this, and it's like,
he stole from everything.
yeah, you'd have a harder time coming up with things George Lucas didn't steal ideas
Yeah.
from.
Like he stole from World War II movies. He stole from samurai movies. He stole from Dune.
Yeah,
He stole from, and a
like
lot of this stuff he's been very blunt about. He's never confessed to the Dune thing that I know of. And Herbert was like, "Listen, George, I know you did this. I just wish you would have gave me credit for it, or something like that." Like he was never going
yeah,
to take Lucas to court or anything. But
right, like he was going to be the bigger man of it.
yeah, yeah, which is pretty cool. and all of the new Star Wars stuff, in some way or another, it mocks, or it doesn't mock, but it very heavily is borrowed from and is influenced by some previous form of cinema or whatever, which I think is cool. That doesn't bother me. Like I like watching, like watching Ahsoka going, this is a samurai story. I liked watching, Mandalorian going, okay, this is basically a Western. I get this. And
Mhm.
with the Acolyte, it's basically a kung fu movie and Kill Bill in space. And I like that. There's something, it's not a great show, and I can see where people wouldn't like it, but again, I don't think it deserves what it's getting. It's like when the Solo movie came out. It wasn't great, but it wasn't that bad either. So anyways,
I'll stand on that hill till I die. Star Wars or Solo was a pretty good movie.
I didn't think I do like it. And I would see another Solo movie. And where me and you are both with bated breath waiting for the Lando Calrissian story, whatever the hell that's going to be, and if it's going to be.
I
Now
would.
my
I
I'm going to
wish
go in.
Star Wars would just stick to its guns and like, okay, these are the projects we're doing, and just stick to it. Not like, oh well, we're going to release this. No, we're not going to release this. Okay, we're
Well,
working
it's
on
driven by
this.
money. These cost a lot of money to make
Well,
things.
and that was the biggest thing. It's like the big shifts in the Star Wars production schedule. Like a lot of people like to say, like, oh well, this is Disney like scrambling because the fans hate it, and it's like, no, this is them scrambling because the former CEO dumped a shit ton of money into Disney Plus,
Hmm.
and it just never materialized. And when it was clear that the prospective gains for Disney Plus were not materializing, he started doing a lot of creative accounting to hide that fact from investors.
Yeah,
And then they had to bring Bob Iger back, and now Bob Iger is doing spin control. Like
yeah.
the fan the fan outcry, the review bombings, all this I would hazard to say very, very little control over what happens with Star Wars.
I disagree. Um, I do disagree because if there are the sheep out there that are going to see it and they're going to go, you know what? Yeah, this I'm not going to subscribe to Disney Plus. There's no value in it or whatever. I love Disney Plus. I love the Marvel shit. I love Star Wars. There's a bunch of other stuff on there. My wife likes it. I don't mind paying. Like that again with these shows. Like, is the Acolyte great? No, but is it worth the monthly subscription that I paid to watch it with all the other stuff that I have? Sure. It's worth what I'm paying for it. If this happened along. Then again, I'm also a self-professed Star Wars whore. I will go see anything with Star Wars on it, and if I don't like it, I don't like it. Part of the problem that the world is having with this stuff is when I say I didn't like the last three Star Wars movies, people take that personal and think that I'm calling, that I don't like them, and that's the way a lot of people have become. Whereas if you say, well, I liked this, but I didn't like this. Well, then you suck, and people get all mad about it because, like, if you liked the last three Star Wars movies, I get it. Every generation, me and you had the original Star Wars movies, and then when the prequels came out, that was that generation's Star Wars movies. The last three movies that came out, they're not our cup of tea, but that was somebody's Star Wars. So what the original movies are to me, I understand. I get it. I don't like those movies. I didn't think they were great. I thought they were terribly put together. But if somebody likes it, that's great. Welcome to the family. I hope you're a Star Wars fan now. That's the way it should be. But what it is everybody, the fanboy culture of everybody attacking each other. Like, no matter what, at this point, no matter what Disney does to release a Star Wars movie, it's going to be hated. It's become very political, and kind of a sense. It's where, which if that's the case, I can't understand why these people keep doing this. Like, all right, if you don't like it, then go find something else to do other than just sitting around all day being trolls. I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't go online and constantly rant and complain if I don't like something that they did. Same thing with The Boys. I do have this season of The Boys. I didn't think was that great, but it's not for the reasons that everybody else hates it. I think I'm just getting bored of the show, and they said the next season's going to be the last one.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they kind of said that they're going to wrap, or that's going to be the last season, and
And they don't care that people are flipping out. They're like, okay, fuck it, don't watch our show. We don't care if you don't like it. Yeah. And they really mean it too.
and honestly, I think like that's a good run. Like 5 seasons of a show is a good run of a show. Now, admittedly, I miss when a season of a show was 22 episodes and not 8.
Yeah.
But you're seeing more and more that a lot of these are like, that's kind of the framework they're looking for, is like 4 or 5 seasons and then move on to something else.
This just happened in the Star Wars world too, because Star Trek Discovery just ended its run for a lot of the same reasons. A lot of the fans didn't like it and stuff, but they went back and re-recorded the last episode to give it a proper ending rather than just end the show.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Greetings, listeners. At this point, Rojan and I kind of lose sight of the message and go off on a 25-minute ramble touching on everything from wokeism to technology to those darn millennials. I pulled it out. We may save it for a best-of show, but we were probably a little too tired at this point and just rambling on. Please accept my apologies. So, Rojan, what are you up to in the world?
Not much. Just, working and running Cinema Labad. I'm honestly getting to a point where I'm not sure if I'm going to do my podcast anymore. I just never have the time to do it and to put the energy into it and stuff. I'm not sure entirely how much it's in me to do it and if I'm really that interested in that world anymore, to be honest with you. But aside from that, just, running the Cinema Labad page and all that stuff, watching bad movies made that were supposed to be 1994, made in 1970.
And always, you can find us at the Old Nerds Drinking Facebook page. Come for the podcast, stay for the memes. And with that,
end of line.
Over? Did you say over? Nothing is over until we decide it is. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
German? Forget it, he's rolling.
It ain't over now.
So, what's the plan? Take car, go to Mum's, kill Phil, grab Liz, go to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for all this to blow over.
Might as well write him off. Let's close up the bridge. Let's get out of here. Close it up. Lights out.
Where are you headed, cowboy?
Nowhere special.
Nowhere special. I always wanted to go there.
We're going streaking! Yes!
All right, move on. Nothing to see here. Please disperse. Nothing to see here, please.